see you. We gon' make it to the top, that's what we do. Tell them like, black is the new green. Black is the new green. We gon' make it to the top, we gon' live our dream. Shout out to the ones who doubt me. I'm a strong black king, tell them crown me. Beat the odds, leave them mad, now they frowning. I be swimming in the money like I'm drowning. Black is the new green. Black is the new green.
Hi guys, happy April and welcome to Black is the New Green, an original series of live interviews dedicated to shining the spotlight on Black entrepreneurs and the amazing achievements of our community. I am Michelle Taylor Willis, your host for the show, and I'm so excited to have our live audience joining us today. Black is the New Green was created by Radivision, the new streaming and community platform for the entire startup world, where everyone can be entertained, learn about, and participate in the entrepreneurial revolution that is literally transforming how we live, work, play, and create our futures. My guest for today, which you will learn, is doing all of that. And I think he came out of the womb doing all of those things. I'd like for you guys to virtually welcome to the show today Donald Hawkins, who is the president and CEO of Kinley. And so he's going to tell us what Kinley is and why the name Kinley exists, which I think is actually brilliant. And we're going to learn a little bit about what he is doing unapologetically for Black Americans. Welcome to the show, Donald.
Thanks so much for having me, Michelle. Happy to be here.
Well, I'm super excited to have you here. And first of all, I want you to kind of set the stage for our viewers and our listeners and tell them what is Kinley and why does Kinley exist?
Kinley is a financial services company, or a lot of people know the industry as neobanks, where we're aiming to help Black America build generational wealth. There have been so many things that have happened to the Black community over the last few centuries, and we see within the community how so much struggle is accustomed to us. 2020 was an impactful year for a lot of people, including myself. And when I saw the pour out of support for the community after the murder of George Floyd, I realized that I'd seen that process before. That I feel like the systems and the powers that be know how to appease our community with giving us things like Aunt Jemima changing her name, or statues being removed, or some people in Congress even taking a knee, but no policy and nothing really making an impact. So that, coupled with the fact that I found out that I was about to be a dad second time over, was really thinking of what I could do to create some type of impact to help break out of that cycle. I'm now in my late 30s, and I've seen this now, since my early years, and realized that the only thing that's going to change to fix things is going to have to be us. And spent a couple of months working through imposter syndrome, as you could imagine, of small little boy from Albany, Georgia, now having this big idea for a financial platform to help change the game. And I realized that every member of our community is really just building on the stones and the bricks laid by those before us. There wouldn't be a Martin Luther King if Shirley Chisholm didn't do her thing. There wouldn't be a Malcolm X if it wasn't for Maggie Lena Walker. So every one of us in the community have made those small little iterative steps, to move to the next level. And that helped me get over my imposter syndrome. And I realized that if I just get started, even if I don't get it all the way across the finish line, maybe somebody else can learn from what I did right, what I did wrong, and they can take it across the finish line. And we're building financial and financial adjacent tools to help people do two primary things. One, help Black America reclaim its annual economic impact. Recent report came out that shows we spent $1.7 trillion in the US last year. Less than 3% of that stays in our community. And when some of those funds trickle back around to us in the form of, enter big bank name here is providing $1 billion fund, and we clap and applaud, but we don't realize we also spent upwards of $20 billion in overdraft fees last year. It's toilet money for a lot of these entities, right? And then the second focal point is we have now achieved a generation that has had enough, especially millennials, where they really want to break cycles. We saw our parents struggle, grandparents struggle, We've had to lay people to rest in our communities and families that don't have life insurance. We're sick of GoFundMe's, and we want to make a difference. So what can we do as a technology company to help people passively build wealth? It's another big focal point for us.
Awesome. So you said your answer was so meaty. I'm hearing words like unapologetically, right? Appease the Black community, financial adjacent. And then the number that really sticks out, right, which we have been hearing over and over since these last numbers came out, is this 1.6 to 1.7 trillion dollars that we literally could own that we don't own, right? So talk to us, first of all, how did you come up with the name Kinley for your neobank? And talk to us about really the primary focus of this wealth building component, because again, it's not a bank, right? You're a fintech company. So I really want people to understand what that platform looks like, why it's Kinley, and how you really plan on using this platform, this financial technology company, to help eradicate the general wealth lag that we're seeing in the Black America.
No,
And then what's generational
great.
wealth, right? Because that's been thrown around a lot too.
Well, Michelle, you gave me like 8 questions, so I'm going
I
to
know,
try my
I'm
best
sorry.
to remember some of them. But one little double tap too, if you think about the amount of money that we spend every year in America, that would make Black America the 12th largest nation on earth, just to give you that full scope. For those that have been around that know our name journey, clearly names are something we don't necessarily fall in love with, but we do love Kinley. So the directions that I gave my team and the branding agency was that we wanted a name that felt familial, that felt communal. And I remember what it was like growing up, going to cookouts, like just something special about Black cookouts and like homecoming events at HBCUs where you meet people, and even without context, you just feel like that connectedness, that familial vibe. And I remember my grandmother, in her voice, just saying, "Hey, them your kin," right? We didn't have to know a name. We didn't have to know where you went to school. It was instant cuz, fam, instant love. I had that back. If somebody came up and said something to them that I didn't like, even though I might have just met them 15 seconds ago, it's on, right? That's family. And we wanted a name that made people feel that support. In the financial industry, Black America's introduction, started with Freedmen Savings and Trust. We essentially got robbed. Funds from Black Americans, especially back then, newly freed slaves and Civil War veterans. A lot of those funds were used to fund entities like the KKK. We never got taught that in school, though. So that was our introduction to America's financial ecosystem. And all these generations later, we still don't feel that connectedness. But we do see consistent examples of racism and us simply being treated unfairly. So for us, we want people to know that when you come to our platform, that we are thinking about what we can do to help you win. We've experienced a lot of the same things that you've experienced. 98% of the Black folks that I know have all gone through the same process where we were in high school and teachers and advisors told us, you must go to college, you must get these degrees. And we went in, heads down, and Black women, especially the most educated group in the country, but also the most indebted, also the most underpaid. So make that make sense, right? We have the degrees, but we don't even make as much, as our counterparts. So now we're on the debt trail. 98% of the people that I know also have had to work their way and rebuild their credit. Why is rebuilding credit always like the process that we must go through as a community in our 20s? And now, folks that are in their mid 30s, late 30s, and 40s have now finally reached the same baseline that a lot of our counterparts get to in their early 20s. But we just lost 10 to 15 years worth of wealth building. And the double tap on the statistic, Brookings Institute came out with a study that shows that by 2053, the net median income of Black families in the US will fall to zero. It's a big problem that nobody's talking about because we're so focused on what most people in the community are focused on, keeping the lights on, living check to check, month to month. Few of us are thinking year to year. Very few of us are thinking decades ahead. But that's how you build wealth. I'm reminded of a story of my mom and dad's church that I grew up in. The farm nearby that sold the church the land, the family grows trees, and a grandfather on that land planted saplings, knowing that he would not be able to generate income from that, but his son or grandson and kids would. That's generational thinking. And
Mm.
now his grandson is my age and is building and is generating passive income from something he didn't even think about until 6, 7 years ago. Right. But we have to find a way to get ahead. And so many of us are trying to break out of that cycle. And we just want to do what we can to help.
So believe it or not, you answered all 8 of my questions, Donald. So great job. You're good at this. You must get interviewed all the time.
No, not too much.
So I'm well enough to be, named Forbes FinTech CEO. Come on, that's a big deal. So clearly we know who you are, right? Or at least Forbes does. And isn't that all that matters?
The community matters. Like
yeah.
Forbes is nice, but what my people think matters a whole lot more.
Okay. So I love that you gave the example of what generational wealth looks like, right? That's what I wanted, because we hear that term thrown around a lot. We don't always know. But there's also this generational knowledge approach, right? Because we can leave the houses, we can leave the money and the whole life insurance policies. But if we don't have the knowledge to do what we need to do with it, then it becomes squandered anyway, right? So why is this modern day approach to thinking about how we bank, with whom we bank, so important to this generational wealth and knowledge component for Black Americans?
I'll answer that question with a quick story. W.B. Du Bois wrote a book many years ago, and for some reason or another, I cannot think of the name now. And in the book, he called on what he called the talented 10, which was educated Black folks, back then, to step out of their nice homes and their nice cars and nice clothes to educate the masses. And that's one big struggle that we've had as a community. I feel everybody that I know that's Black has a Mr. Jackson on their street. If Mr. Jackson had a profile, he would likely have served in one of the armed forces. He retired. He kept his yard tidy, always had a nice car. Mr. Jackson and Miss Jackson were always put together. But what we don't do, or what we stopped doing, was really relying on each other. And growing up, I wouldn't go to Mr. Jackson and go, "Hey, Mr. Jackson, man, nice car. Talk to me about how you built wealth." We don't share. So those of us that typically learn, we have 2 routes that we can go. Keep our heads down and build wealth for ourselves and internally, maybe even for our kids. Or the other side is like maybe help people, spread the wealth, spread the word. You don't see a lot of people in our community going, "Hey, here's some stocks you all should take a look at." But guess what you do see from our community? A whole lot about crypto. 35% of Black America now holds cryptocurrency. And if you think about everything that we're willing to share, people will screenshot crypto losses and crypto gains because it feels like it's a part of a community. We're going to make money together and lose money together. But ask somebody to screenshot their personal checking account balance. Ain't going to happen, right? So you think about everything else in our life. When we need to lose weight, we typically subscribe to thinking that a personal trainer is going to do a better job at helping us train. Let me get this light back on. A personal trainer is going to do a better job of helping us lose weight versus on our own. We want to enhance our mind. We know teachers and professors do a better job when it comes to that. But when it comes to money, building wealth, saving, YouTube right now is maybe the market leader in who people are going to, or maybe to Twitter to listen to people, one of the many gurus that are going to tell you, how you can earn $10 million in 10 months. And that's typically what our community goes to. So for us, we provide bite-sized financial and financial adjacent topics. We bring in experts and we show you multiple ways that you can diversify, just your money building habits. A lot of it really has to do with building money the old way. So you heard me reference earlier that 35% of the community holds cryptocurrency. But when you think about traditional wealth building tools like stocks and ETFs, we only hold 1.6% compared to white America's 91.6%. And that's because so many of us have not had the ability or haven't had the experience of going to the Mr. Jackson or the Mrs. Jackson on our street and saying, "Hey, how'd you do that?" Because I can tell you what, Mr. Jackson probably didn't make that from Bitcoin. It is more than likely some very standard, slow wealth building features and tools that he or she got involved with. And I think that's the biggest reason why we don't have that exposure. But what do have exposure to? The struggle. Even when we do make it, never forget I saw this story about Tyler Perry, and how he, was putting on plays all over the country, but was still sleeping in his car.
Yeah.
Now, of course, in my young mind, I'm like, bro, you doing all these plays, you couldn't sleep at one of your actors' houses. we glamorize the struggle though, so it
Right.
becomes a custom. Like, oh, to make it here, you gotta go.
Right. It's almost like a requirement for the glory story, right? You gotta have gone through some stuff. But it doesn't have to be that way, right?
It doesn't have to be like that. Like building money, time is the best friend of money. We've all heard the statistics. Like if a 15-year-old just starts putting $20 away a month, by the time that kid is 35, 40, like that's a pretty significant nest egg, depending on where they sit it. We just have to actively go out and gain the experience, but build new habits. Like right now, when we think about other platforms where people can invest in crypto, use crypto, we're not thinking about it from a wealth building perspective. The vast majority of our community statistically is trying to use it to flip money, because we start so far behind, we want to get caught up. And the media plays a role too. I mean, as a kid, all I saw growing up was nice cars, nice homes, colognes, perfume. So these kids want those things. We should want them to want those things, but we never show them how to get those things.
Right.
Some of us take an alternative path to get those things, and others just give up on that dream. And I feel in high school, especially, I'm kind of going all over the place with this, but I've seen so many kids have that aspiration in elementary school and middle school, and then life hits them in high school, and you can see that they form the ceiling for themselves, right? But as a community, the only way we're going to win is if we just continue to find ways to unlock that thought. Let's go big.
Right. So you talk about this approach, right, a lot. This community versus individual, collective, a collective community, as opposed to trying to do it on your own, right? So how does Kinley support that effort? Like literally, what does Kinley look like in terms of building unapologetic wealth for Black?
Well, I think stage one, Michelle, is really just representation. Like we're comfortable saying that we are a Black focused financial technology company. And a lot of folks won't say that. They use code words like underserved, underrepresented.
Urban.
Like urban. Yeah, it's okay to say Black, folks. And guess what? We're okay with that. And we want people to know that we look like them, that we represent them, that we aren't a separate segment of the community that somehow is giving back. Like, no, a lot of folks on my team are also going through the same things that customers are going through, and they're learning as we build. Right. So I think that's an important thing, because a lot of the current financial institutions that we work with typically don't look like us. I mean, there's a law right now in California here in 2022 where it's being voted on, where boards are going to be forced to be more diversified, which is cool, which is great, because the boards do need more diversity. But the fact that even is up for a vote after all these generations that we've been here, people, wake up. We have to create these solutions. Nobody's going to do it for us. The second thing that we do, because we have those experiences, it also plays a role in the tools and the features that we develop, because we understand our customers, because we are our customers. We're building for family. My mother, sisters, are on this platform, right? And I don't want to go home for Thanksgiving or a family event and get railed, if I'm not doing something that's going to be positive for them. So a lot of companies say, customers are like our family. With Kinley, it really is family.
Got it. And the name really is indicative of what you guys stand for and what you're doing. So you mentioned this, and I know we're going to have to take some questions here in a minute, but Donald, how much of this is our fault as Black Americans, and how much of it is America's fault?
No, it's we were put in this situation but man, like, but we are the most resilient and glass half full and generally peaceful people, on planet Earth. Because no matter what we've been through, all we want is peace, right? Like we want people to provide equity. We're not even trying to be in power, just a different type of mindset, but we've lost a lot. Think of what our ancestors have gone through. When people pat me on the back and go, Donald, oh my God, what you all are working on is so great. I'm like, nah, this light work. I was like, my father being integrated as the only black person in an all white school in the deep South, that's a heavy lift. That's work. He had to fight every day, right? My grandmother she was just that kind of spirit, was like very similar. I think it's transferred to me and my kids too, where, we don't like things being established the way they are if they're wrong. She moved the needle. Thank God my dad had the temperament that he had. He's a very nonviolent, level-headed person, but will fight if he needs to, and was able to open the door for other black people to go to that high school as well. So when you think about where we came from, we were only able to get through the torments and things we went through together, right? Even people that weren't in your family, meetings that we had on plantations to make sure folks were taken care of. They weren't going to take care of us. We had to take care of ourselves. Harriet Tubman and the Underground Railroad and all the network of people that had to come together at risk of not only themselves personally, but their families. We did everything together. We worked collectively to build and to grow. But America, the media, has really pushed this whole sentiment on independence. Don't worry about it, Michelle. If you hustle, you're going to be fine. And then later in life, when you get much, much older, then you can turn back to the community and be philanthropic. Let's grow together. Like let's go arm in arm right now and say, hey, if I have a choice of spending my money at insert one of the gazillion non-black owned businesses, in the country, maybe I should be more proactive and go to this black owned business. Guess what? Let's be real with each other as a community. Let's also not judge each other so harshly. I'm not going to call no names, but I know exactly how we are when we go into white establishments. I can see a dirty cup, a fork, and guess what? I'll be back next week.
Right.
But I've also seen black folks go into black owned businesses and we instantly start appraising.
Right.
Oh, why does the door squeak like that?
So culpability lies a little bit on both sides, is what
100%. But now we have the knowledge. Like I think before
Right.
our predecessors were blocked from assessing the knowledge. Now we have the knowledge.
Right.
And it's up to us to use it.
We have to do something with that knowledge, right? We've got to act
100%.
on. We got to apply it. So speaking of that, we know that disparity is there everywhere across all industries in life here in America, right? What does that look like in the funding space? Because you're a black founder, right? You had to go get funding. You raised $5 million within the first round, $1 million. Pardon me if my numbers are off, right?
$20 million, but we're not counting. We're not counting.
I said dollars. First round. Potato. But so what did that look like? How did that disparity exist on the funding side of things for you?
I would definitely say, the statistics in the venture space pretty bad when it comes to black founders. And another thing that I like to kind of dispel, I find black founders, like usual, we get grouped into underserved, underrepresented founders. But you typically take white women out of that mix, Southeast Asian women out of that mix, and men out of that mix, and all of a sudden the numbers get really, really bad. But those are numbers that people don't really want to deal with. So when you see like the 2% or 1.2% of venture capital goes to underrepresented or underserved founders, you take all those other entities out of that mix and just talk about black founders, and you get ready to count a lot of zeros, the opposite. Yeah. So I think we have to call it what it is, so, and a lot of that I feel is due to lack of density. The folks who cut the checks typically don't have in where they live, they don't develop relationships with people that look like me and you, right? So and people tend to do business with people they like. That's just the old adage, saying of in sales, you do business with people that you like. But when it comes to funding, like it's just different. and we have different vibes. Like we might come in looking like me, we might come in looking like you, we might come in with dreads, but still have the same business model, the same compassion, the same everything, but we're going to be viewed totally different, right? That's not our fault. That's the fault of the check writers, So for me, we took advantage, one of the movement of 2020, and we got some amazing capital partners that were in it for the right reasons, not the performative. Oh, our answer to racism in America is, even though we have a $10 quadrillion fund, we're going to spin up $1 million fund just for Black folks. It's like, oh, that's nice. It's not a lot of money from that fund. And oh yeah, by the way, how come you haven't been investing in Black founders to begin with? Now, that's not to say I'm going to down everybody that's done that. I mean, I appreciate the sentiment, but I want to push back and go, why can't Black founders get funding from the general fund anyway? Right? Do your LPs care? Is there more risk associated, do you feel? Because statistically, a lot of the underrepresented founders that I referenced earlier, we tend to do better with the funds that we receive because we know we have grit. We're accustomed to not having. So when we do get funding, we know, even like the way I look at leading my company, this isn't me just building generational wealth for my family. I have to be an example so that when other folks that look like me go into those same VC rooms, this is a familiar face, a familiar thing.
Right.
There's a lot of people out there smarter than me, and we all just have to play our role.
Well, that and two, I mean, that's a lot to carry on your shoulders, right? I mean, you're taking that burden, and I would say thank you, right? Because you once you become the first or one of the first to do something, you really do kind of have this obligation almost now to pave the way for and to make it look good for everybody else, so that the struggle isn't as tough, right? Our ancestors paved the way for us, and I say often, we are the manifestation of those prayers of our ancestors. So you're answering prayers for them that, but for a lot of people that are going to come behind you, Donald. So thank you for that. I could talk to you. I have like 500,000 questions. The more you talk, the more questions I have. But I know we got to get to our lightning round, kind of, as I call it. So we have some great questions from our viewing audience. I'm going to ask you those questions, and you have to keep your answers to about 30 seconds to a minute, because we're going to roll through them, okay? So that's the only rule. All right. So this comes from some of our Radivision viewers. The first one is, how does financial disparity affect African-American independent workers and entrepreneurs in particular?
Yeah, I mean, it's a whole, ecosystem of, chicken before the egg. If we don't get access to the same level of funding, access to the same type of education, then we start off in a hole and have to work our way out. It's a full global socioeconomic issue that we face. And unfortunately, it's not going to go away anytime soon. The same amount of effort and force that went into making things the way that it is now, it's going to take an equal amount of effort and force to get out of it. And we need to have that mindset.
Absolutely. Can you give us one thing you think that we could do to start the process, start the domino effect?
Two things. One, normalize entrepreneurship. Like when folks are afraid in our community to start businesses, one, because of fear of failure, but also because entrepreneurs are typically viewed as pariahs because we buck against the norm. We're not just going to work for the factory. Oh, Michelle wants to sell candles. She can't do anything with candles. She doesn't know anything about candles. Let's change that mindset where we support that entrepreneur, because guess what? Michelle's going to hire more people from the community, than a lot of other businesses will. And the second thing is, let's also normalize saving, for our kids. Like if you get a kid accustomed to putting away $5 and then eventually 20 and eventually $100 in some type of interest-bearing account, you're creating a nest egg. We have to normalize that. Let's stop waiting till we get to our 30s and 40s before we start thinking about the end. Let's think about the end when we're young.
Absolutely. Love it. All right. What is the main financial education needs in Kinley's communities?
I would say, really just around budgeting and saving. I mean, like I mentioned before, like that is the key. If our old folks used to tell us, like you got a hole in your pocket, or you got a burning hole in your pocket, because we make money and spend money so quickly. It took me a long time before I got to a point where being transparent, I was even comfortable putting my bills on auto pay. That's a big step for a lot of folks. When you can put your bills on auto pay, you've reached
You got to know
a
the money.
threshold.
You got to feel good that money is going to be there. That is, yeah.
So really, like, living within your means and setting a budget. And for you, maybe a budget might be, only saving $20 a month. Start there and grow. Like, we don't have to skip steps to put away $2,000 a month. You got to start and make that a consistent habit.
Absolutely. And I know you touched on this a little bit, but this might have been somebody that came in on the back end of the program. But what inspired you to found this company or find this company?
For those of you that have seen Slumdog Millionaire, like, after working through my imposter syndrome, I look back on my career, the different entities that I'd work in fintech, ad tech, health tech, starting a brick and mortar business as well. And I realized, man, I'm in a very unique position to do what I'm doing now. I had a great network in the financial technology space, a great network of venture capitalists that I could work with. And honestly, I felt that I was called to do it because of the position that I was put in. The mentors and the people that I've been able to meet wasn't just because of me. My mom and dad put me in a position to meet people, and I took that opportunity to run and do what I'm doing now. And to double tap on that, I just feel all of us need to really buy into the opportunities and the experiences and the dreams that we have. I can't tell you how many Einstein level ideas that Black folks have had that are now in the ground. We never shared it. We were too afraid to start. We were afraid of failure. Get out there. And I got over my imposter syndrome because I felt fueled by the community. And I knew that I'm going to go out here and give them hell and do the very best that I can. And if I win, awesome. We all win. If I lose, somebody's going to pick up where I left off and take it across the finish line. Why not me?
I love that, Donald. Okay, last question. What is your best advice for someone who wants to break into this industry?
First off, hit me up. Like, I want to share as much as possible because density and experience and sharing is really how we're going to win. If I knew the things I knew now, how many times have we said that to ourselves? But if I can help impart some of the things that I've learned, to somebody that wants to jump in, look me up on LinkedIn. Happy to help. Do the work. Go to conferences. Read books. Right. Become a student of the game. Being Black, we already know we have to be over prepared either way. Right. So don't give them an excuse to say no. There's so many opportunities that are out there, and no one is going to fix their own problems than people who experience the same pain points, right? So just be solutions oriented and don't be afraid to fail. I failed many times. That's the only reason I'm sitting here doing what I'm doing right now, because in fact, I would actually say that's probably the primary reason I'm sitting here now, because investors typically don't like to invest in people, who haven't made an attempt. They like people who know what the sting of a loss and failure feels like, because guess what? We're going to work hard as hell to make sure that we don't do that again. Yeah. But you got to get out there and give it an at bat.
Yeah, I love it. And the sting of failure, I love how you put that. My whole body stings constantly because of the failures, right? But I mean, that's it. I mean, the failure is the success is in the failure, right? And the constant 100%. Push and pull of what it is. And at some point, one day, you end up at WD-40, right? You get the 40th formula and it works. And clearly you have now found the formula for one, being amazing. I mean, all of the things you do in the nonprofit sense. Congrats again for the nod you got from Forbes for the 2020 Banker's Choice, recipient being that. I mean, you've done some amazing things. And I think in this space of money, which, has tended to be such a quiet space for us. We don't talk about it. We don't share about it. We don't, none of that engagement happens. You basically blown the doors open on these conversations around money and what real generational wealth is, what the knowledge is, how do we apply it? And you're using a fantastic platform to do it. So thank you so much. Can you tell people how they can find you and how they can actually begin to bank with Kinley?
Yeah, check us out online. Yeah, our website is www.bkinley.com. That's Kinly. We're on all the socials under the name Kinley as well. Feel free to reach out to me or any of my team members on LinkedIn. I think you'll be very pleased to see the representation that we have on our team in leadership, Black women especially. And yeah, happy to help however we can.
Awesome. Thanks again, Donald. Another episode of Black is the New Green, where I hope your minds have been blown. Mine always is, because we have amazing guests here. We inspire the community to thrive, build, and support terrific companies like Donald's. But most importantly, we get to share our stories. We feed off the energy of these amazing heroes who succeed against great odds, who put it all out there, risk it all, just to get a shot at following their passions and creating a huge value in the world. And guess what? Guys, you can do it too. We see examples of this every single week. Again, my name is Michelle Taylor Willis. I am at Michelle Taylor Willis on just about everything. And I'm right here on radavision.com every Wednesday at 12:30 p.m. 12:30 p.m. Eastern Time, 9:30 a.m. Pacific. And Black is the New Green is where we will be here until the end of April when we go on hiatus, but we will be back in the fall for amazing stories just for you. So until then, we'll see you next time.
Yeah, I do it for my people and my family and the ones who say they understand me. Yeah, I see you and I see you. We gon' make it to the top, that's what we do. Tell them like, black is the new green. Black is the new green. We gon' make it to the top, we gon' live